Hanada siyo gizidi ipini bi ado tratnas nelen noslini do Facebook sa anida noslini do ado kiyapanat at noslini ado shihonal gloshi benat ani noslini da isunoftai ehe di bini bi ya di Western Agency Navajo Nation President and Vice President Yilkos Ahigi Agency meeting American Rescue Plan isn't so children apanat anido ba bel ish nihil ishtra do nihigi kodov na antini betwi ashik edo shidna ko yeah ko angel ko notloni kodoshin e khadol just as from be khahol jishi e yadi to the zinlini be an in ko ajishi set to the zinlini be an the honorable Vice President Myron Lizer. He will do the invocation chiage na hojish.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Fowler, thank you. Yate Bene, Vice President Lizer here. Comanche Michelin, 1200 buses, Chin, Auto Comanche Deshache, Clash Deshanelli. It's good to be with you all this morning on this Western Agency American Rescue Plan Act meeting session. So I'm glad you could all join in with us.
Dohadits at the wa. Difficulties, shikado shidna, quadi chapin sekesi, oyo satan hitch up, which na kapahan nasin. Kodoshi to the zin or left, or an hin hit to the zin, honodo, a pinda she thought to the zin that is a ko, ashi so that is need Kodojon or leshamana Hassan yadit. Zilistan, Twistan, Charke, Hayot Kas no de Tsui, Adakon. Kadadin ani niyajne away nitle ada konti binibi tunadilzen hashine la kohon chinat anlini as kohon but ilchan alzen do hom drasko net nichikinahal kedahon peso chita hatet ahi yen khata jos patole ada hon jono e be khilna hadilne be nit edo nasko net nje ada kon hinat anlini tratna zildan lini kayapenat adan lini Donald Closhi benat dan lini hipesh bahasa anadan lini troy at el nane kedoles nasko net neje hon hidden and lini juno ba ntina de keso bana huit after letter a yisibini yakon nasko net neje yat el hisna hot or yat el hisna host anole kohon na doi adit hon hits alto dole the kosnas it at tapeti no hon nas nin hits alto dole Yat hon nani kedole adot the asha anitino ka eta isni in he ket adole hitit aj nihna hantlod on khana hol yadole nihi konta del on hionesh kishnas kango adon hites enas lavon hi kotna nihi totnas kango yat on hisnas anole adon hitna atson de nishito alalaj de nishi batonadi zendon hits lot so dan bini khas twin his zani Naka chini he when he yaje ato chihi do hon yat hon nada kedole junon kitna hot atole konsa et so de zindini anshend behanana si ole atine ben hicho kujona hasli kujona hasli Apenas nana doleshik eroshidne de a welcome address kon hinat ani dan lini kodoshi nihichahanata zitole ado bikero ya ashtlal kehas e kodo not tkinido le cares at will yeni hiti bitado atahil ado nasgo net American plans at isnini beso chidin de sato be ben his nahan net le ado di sato na de kishin sana ya pahuito achik edo shitne ado or kisido hitin zanido nakabahan na sandale Apok adnasna na Honorable President Jonathan Nez nihinat and linishina kodo banat Mr. President.
Oh, here, Sister Kodo Nakhatsudin Zinigi, Dr. Ophelia Fowler. Yad Nikidini do le Arnold Soka, Danichinatigi do, da Isonol Sagi, le Archer, how Zoge, Kanazan of Linigi, not I not Linigi. Tashi ya the Benant not Lido, not Gloshido, Kiato, da Keta. بنات آني نحلنجي دو قلت جدا نات آني نحلنجي يات أن هديني دو لس آني الخشينات آني نيتلها غنز آني جود آينا أنتين هيجو قداليا جو كجة آتشي كي تنجي إيه عندي دنك أتشي التيدو عندي نكيا أول بندا نيتين جود شيء ياهو شان توده شين شلون تنسني باش شين Twitchini da Shichiro, Twitchini da Shanana. Ado Kodo Shinado, Vice President Myron Lizer, Vido Yate Bedini do Lefto, Niki Beshman Sandan, Linido, Niki Yama, Chief Justice Joanne Jane, Aja has Aja, Golde has Aja Edo, Dichashi Kodo Nija Datsi. Biniya Kwaho Agi A. Dean Lay, Washington, that peso. Nihich Koliaya, Anid, the 2020 Kahada, Aja Laja, the Satagi, Nalt Sosbiji Kai like Bes Anisli, CARES Act, the Noya, Beso Jadet. So it Nesnatin Doba on Dinsa that the meal so, and else our the Navajo Nation, which is Jadet. Tashin ya halate chose in person hijidet ane tahne jo ancient teaching hijashane del neto del peso chidet ane do chose in ara nelt and the etzi do ancient do bandate in do del halate peso con chudon in kodo hanin hije kodel neto del ado bindashil neshe CARES Act, the Twitter Naskodalia, Beshli Chi, the Naskodalia, the Agi cell towers that Agi, the being the Kidigi do cell phones done dal Nishigi Edo La Dalia, Ado bathroom additions of that Agi da Nihi Masani chain Nala Kutaba Dalia. Dalia Gido Kudoni Ashan del Neto des Quinel Aj chose in. Sain his bed as a beso don't hit it. Lana no Senegido, Dina Snegi Sashi, don't dash nesta. Beso gi con checks in Hijakodalia, hardship assistant, the Waliego. Ara Ishi George da Soch in Gianda Ben da Soch bills da pay da Sajo, what ne Washington, that what beso. Hijakodalia, Schlatin Howard Zorgo, what beso. Hijakolia. Kagish Kliji Klinigi, do beso Kodalia. So hot ya beso gi Nihilbehosen do de John He Kodo, the Nano Lini do Shinatani no Linigi, Jo Bells no hot ya do Shashin hat needed all this. So ya beso chde anda bidino. Aro kododo not source Washington no bichi kudelia. Jo adadi nene CARES Act not besh the chi do twoda jo naskuda do nistadi ninde sadalia sadal nende akon the bears ani Washington bears ani don I don't hido bears ani ye Allah hada det aya ebni na edo jo skinson da nistadi kon the nebikia pokha ebni na ya od skinso e person hije kodalia checks be hardship assistant akko dik person hije anana liagi American Rescue Plan Act jo ato yan data na biche Navajo Nation government akonde ashtadi ne person hije aliago e kon toda besli chi broadband telecommunication that egida ebe projects sigi da do niltadi no ebini na kuta asasi di chishe chinat ani no slinigi shike no slini ako di not so spayesh tigi Washington michi kudeliagi ya ya white paper will yego di behas ani hada da tagi Washington behas ani John do kasto jo ist enda do nicht kot yati na liaba gando toda besle chi skinso da do nicht the nebiki up ka jo you behas ani hada da jo ist ya gogo skinso da anstodes aro an hido Navajo Nation behas ani do jo do kasto akodan hido need adai nisha you ye behas ani hada det en late saga hot zanda dan hido kodo ye jashan del ego Washington do la behas ani hada det jost da do nisto do kas ahot ni Washington do kon da na da ni zinigi adadi nisti kon buildings that egi construction that egi da no so edo ben del nish kodoshi Nihinat ani etzele dan linigin hitre astrone delne leftolle. Ado the American Rescue Plan Act behas ani hadelia Washington the yelada aslin ajbe Washington junat ani dan linigi ado lange the sedagi inni dahnes kegi President Joe Biden Vice President Kamala Harris ebije kada yilla ek at beso nan hiche konan ne na shladin hahot zogo do the bakagish kliji governments that egi tribal governments baba shtadi ne ebini na hot sasi tlin diche khayushi na de kitcho kon beshpas an aslan dat leho sashi da isunol tsa la na dos kit jo diche baho atole na dos kidigi halait jo skinso beso chudo in ton hi keni hinela na dan zinigi no di schlau zogo baho dada na kigo hot das zogi betlasi clean na tani dan linigi di chido na kiti nas ol kildo ol kilonando de aros kando 5 agencies ota sai leto del so na idos kidigia do na khabiga hoshin kon email address do ngijo da neto le jo la dan hinal ado answer da yagi shi ol kiloda ako na idos kido de skanda na khabiga jo la kon hi keni na has highlight in the ado highlight jo ni hido khana zan ni klingi ado ni hido kode siriat ere ke huit inigi highlight kodo atra na hata adadi nito washing saga hot zanje anda nashigi biche koda di nito no nigi jo kade di baho shikedo shudna so what's our she ya here do dana do ich honne dina snegi de konzentragi da nast it's at ja des kit di de nebiki ab ka dana ya na din kit asa ache aro sa ni ke ni hinna sa ni za ajit den da di de kosin skagi it's aro asa bedol nada so ni khash ni shike no sini do khat na zano sinigi khe la kodo hok da so hok esuntagi da ni gi jo edo ka manager CSCs da sinigi ajin das na chigi kodo ni ke ni hinna bija ashana ndas igi khe la aro da isa o la shi kodo di bin de kidigi internet da bi to da isa da huin sin da la khoni ke ni hinna da isa o ni he ya khash ni do he ni din ni do da hin na ni shdas ni a kon da do bi chini khata to da dina ni so hada ino na shike no ni a shin so kon do the neck etching ji see do that do kon shi bi the gana catch do that just wanted to quickly update you in English as well. I said a few words in Navajo. I know much of the presentation may be in the English language, so I ask for your consideration and your support to relay this information to our elders and Navajo speakers. You know, there's just so much, as you know, chapter officials, you know, it takes a long time, especially running a meeting, to do it both in English and Navajo. And we just ask for your patience. We're doing our very best to get the information out, and we just want to be transparent to the Navajo people. And what we want to do today is get the information out about the CARES Act. If you have the agenda, this information will be uploaded to the DCD website. The agenda, the PowerPoint presentation, the questions that are going to be asked when it's question and answer time later on will be compiled into a frequently asked question sheets that will be uploaded into the internet. Yesterday we had 2 agency meetings. Today we'll have another 2, Western Agency and Central Agency, and tomorrow we'll have another agency as well. And so if you want to get more information, feel free to log in or let the Navajo people know. Of course, these are recorded, so they'll be on our Facebook page as well. Today, Western Agency, and as I said in Navajo, you know, there's a lot of needs out there, more than the amount that we're going to be given. And we just need to make sure that there is a process, and the process in place will be brought forth by a Division of Community Development. And it's not a free-for-all, and I say that with all due respect. We have a lot of projects that are already in discussion. Some of those chapters have forwarded all their water line, electricity, and their projects. They're being vetted, and we want to be able to get as many of these projects, local projects, done in a timely fashion. And if it's a new project, it's going to take some time, but it's going to be a 3-year process. It'll be broken down into 3 years. So some of these projects that are not fully construction ready, we're hoping by year 3 we can get those to construction ready. And you know, right now we have been talking to the Treasury, and over $20 billion is going out to Indian country. $1 billion of that is going to be equally distributed to 574 tribes. $19 billion will be sent out to the tribes by formula. Now, if we're in the CARES Act funding formula, it was based on population, using the HUD numbers, and also land size and the employees that are working here on the Navajo Nation. We at the Office of President Vice President have submitted our comments to the Treasury. Treasury has oversight over the distribution formula. What we ask this time around is to do it by population. Yes, same thing. Land size, yes, because as big as 27,000 square miles, as big as we are, you know, I mean, that's how it's divvied out in the states, based on land size and population. The other 2 is going to be also for employees again. And the 4th is how hard to hit a tribe is. You know, we got hit hard. And so those are our recommendations to the Treasury. They haven't approved the guidelines, so none of that money has gone into Indian country. But let me just say to everybody, and thank the division directors for their hard work in getting a lot of this information compiled. I know we had Navajo Nation Council work sessions. Because of those work sessions, there have been a lot of questions from you, chapter officials, and the public. And that's the reason why we're having this meeting for local input. And today, our facilitator will be Dr. Perfilia Fowler. We got the invocation from her, as well as the vice president had some technical difficulty. I had technical difficulties yesterday afternoon. Welcome address by the 4 leaders from the 3 branches. And we'll also have an update on the Navajo Nation CARES Act funding. That's what I'm talking about. Leonard Sosi, Office President, Vice President, Executive Staff Assistant, will be giving you an overview. How has those dollars been spent? $714 million. We want to be transparent. We want to give you all the information. You know, it changed. We wanted a lot of this money to go to infrastructure, but because of an internal deadline, we weren't able to finish off a lot of these projects. But let me just say, a lot of our businesses got direct relief. We got a lot of water line, electricity projects, broadband, telecommunication towers up, bathroom additions, cisterns, and many other projects done. But there's still more to be done. And a lot of that had to get reverted back because of our the federal regulations and the Navajo Nation laws too that hindered quick development. And so we're going to reevaluate those projects that we didn't finish. It should be a priority in the American Rescue Plan Act. But for the CARES Act, we're going to give you an update how much money went out to the Navajo people. Over $314 million went directly into the pockets of our Navajo people. There's still some CARES Act funding that is going to be allocated to tribes. Our recommendation is for those individuals that didn't get the hardship assistance or their application was lost or something to that effect. I know we've got a lot of our Navajo people saying that we applied, but we never got anything, or I wanted to apply, but the deadline came. The remaining CARES funds, we like to put that in there, and including the businesses too. Some of the businesses weren't able to apply because of our change in deadlines, you know, and so we want to also utilize those dollars to help them out. So the other presentation will be on lessons learned. What did we learn from the CARES Act? This is the money that came in 2020, right? The first allocation, the big allocation, $714 million. There's a lot we learned. What we're going to be doing is we did send out a position paper to the federal government, White House, and our congressional delegation on how to update these federal regulations. You as Navajo people have said, we need to change some laws. It's just not Navajo laws. It's also federal laws that need to be updated so we can get things done quicker. You guys know it takes a long time to get a home site lease and a business site lease and right-of-way clearances. Now's the time, while we have an administration that is focusing on Indian country, to make these changes. And then we also have to make changes here on the Navajo Nation, our own laws. There's a lot of red tape, you guys said, during the election. Now's the time to change it so that we can get these projects done. So there's going to be a presentation by Paulson, our Chief of Staff, and Garrett Silversmith, our Director for Navajo Department of Transportation, on the lessons learned and giving you an update on the white paper. There's 2 white papers, one overall white paper for changes to the regulations, federal regulations. Then the other is a focus on transportation. There's a transportation bill right now being debated. So there might be more money coming to Navajo and throughout the country for infrastructure, aging roads, rebuilding bridges, things like that. Then we'll transition into the American Rescue Plan Act. So you got the CARES Act first. Leonard Sosi, who's going to give us an overview and update. Those are the dollars that already came to Navajo. What's left, what's been spent, lessons learned from that. And then now we're going to talk to you about the American Rescue Plan Act. That's the new monies that was just approved by this new administration. Santi Lewis from the Navajo Nation Washington Office, Executive Director, will give us an overview of the 20 billion. And then there's also monies that we can apply for. See, the 20 billion would go straight directly to the tribes. If we use a similar formula, or if we get even the new formula that we recommended, we could get about 1.5 to $2 billion to the Navajo Nation. And we are preparing for that, and we'll give you an overview. There's a lot of dollars. BIE schools, you got money. They went straight to you. In broadband telecommunication, there's $1 billion we can apply for. Some of you know that FEMA has a reimbursement now. Families and our prayers and our thoughts go out to those families who lost loved ones. Over 1,200 Navajo citizens who lost their lives. You are able to get reimbursed for what you took out of your pocket. But you know what? You have to apply directly to FEMA yourself. They can go up as high as $9,000 to get you your reimbursement back. So we want you to take advantage of those, and we want to be able to give information to you so you can apply for it. Some of these you have to apply on your own, or some of them we have to apply as a tribe. Then some of it comes directly to the tribe. So we'll give you an overview on that, and Santi will do that. And then the DCD will give a presentation about the process from the local level up to Window Rock on how the prioritized projects will be. 4 categories, basing it on 3 years. Dr. Pearl Yellman, the director, will give us an overview, a presentation on those, the processes, so that you're familiar with the process. Again, we have to vet them. You know, I know some new officials might want to have some new projects on there. We're just going to have to see if they're doable within 3 years. And some of those projects are already vetted. They're already in the system. They're already on the list. And then we'll go into questions and answers from you all. Dr. Fowler will facilitate that. And then we'll do closing remarks by JT Willie from the Division of Economic Development, and he's our director. What we're proposing is this is the first presentation to give you an overview of what's happening with federal fundings coming in. So we're accountable with these dollars that you all know what's happening with. There'll be future meetings. There's going to be an economic development meeting. There'll be a transportation meeting. There'll be an infrastructure meeting, so that we all are on the same page. We're anticipating the Treasury formula to come out in maybe mid-May, early May, and the money's getting kicked out maybe to the tribes maybe early June. So, and then we'll really focus on how much money we really are getting from the Navajo Nation. So it's going to take some time, but we want to be prepared. Our division directors have done a great job in preparing. You know, they're doing presentations to the council. So executive branch, the cabinet members are the ones that are really crushing the numbers. Of course, working with many of you, all of you, I'm hoping, at the local level. But today we'll give you an opportunity to have input, and because there was questions during the CARES Act, why weren't chapters consulted? Why weren't they involved? We're hoping that this type of forum will get the chapters their questions answered. So thank you to the Western Agency and the new council officers, Gerald Keitzel, our president, our vice president, Roland Small Canyon, our secretary, Candace Yazzie. And we are looking at updating a lot of our laws. And we're hoping that because of the new enrollment update from the CARES Act, it is now, our Navajo enrollment is at 399,000 plus members. And we also want to make sure that the U.S. Census uses that too on these new counts. it was quite disheartening to hear that Arizona will not get a new congressional seat. We all thought we were going to get a new one, but we were undercounted here on Navajo. But I'm hoping that these new numbers could justify an update, at least for the Navajo Nation. So thank you, and we wish you all a productive session. And I'll turn the time back over to you, and just stay strong, everybody. I know we're still in a pandemic, but you all are doing an outstanding job listening to your healthcare professionals, also our leaders. It's because of you our numbers are really low. Let's encourage our citizens to get vaccinated. It's their choice, but let's encourage them. If we can get the 75% vaccination on the Navajo Nation, I think the Health Command Operations Center will consider reopening our Navajo Nation to our visitors, because we will have hit herd immunity at 75% of our people vaccinated. So our goal here on the Navajo Nation, we're about 71% residents, Navajo people that are living on the nation, about 70 to 71% fully vaccinated. So let's get to 75. Let's reopen the nation to our visitors. I know our tourist businesses are struggling. This is a doable goal, and I think we can reach it. So God bless you, and God bless our great Navajo Nation, everybody. This is a time that we can really do some great things, and I appreciate everyone's prayers. God has just bestowed some great things on this nation, and all your prayers, the Creator has bestowed upon us big responsibility, and let's work together on these new fundings to improve the quality of life for our Navajo citizens. God bless you. God bless our great Navajo Nation. Dr. Fowler, back to you.
Ike shana aro shana tani. Ache nas nana dole kune ikilna kasitahi banaho jija. At this time, we'd like to give the floor to our Honorable Vice President, Mr. Myron Lizer. Shiash nanaho jish.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fowler. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we've had, but we appreciate our president's address and also his leadership. So again, we're all in this together. So Yate Bene, Vice President Lizer here, Comanche Nishle, Tohana Basis Team, Do Comanche Deshache, Clash Deshanella. It's good to be with you all here on the Western Agency. Yate Bene, Western Agency, all of our leadership here, and all of our executive staff here on this call. In my earlier prayer, which I guess the audio was suspect, I made mention of committing our work to the Lord, and that we will be established in that work. Recovery Plan Act monies and the funding that is coming to the Navajo Nation, the largest funding package ever in the history. So this is a precedent setting, and we appreciate everybody that's working towards this. As our president has just said, you know, the Treasury is still working on how it'll be given, how much, and all that. So that remains to be seen. But we do wish for your success in this here, as we do all of our agencies. But there have been many pleas by you all to come and sit at the table, and here we are. We're talking about recovery. I've made mention in the past, and we appreciate President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris for their leadership in this ARPA, and the Congress and Department of Treasury and everybody that we're needing to advocate to, but they've also advocated for Indian country as well. So we appreciate their leadership. But they use the term Build Back Better. That term means that we were there at one time, and you know as well as I know that our economy and our infrastructure condition here on Navajo has long been suspect. And so I dubbed this the great catch-up. Heard me say that over the years we are 30, 40 years behind the times that our own infrastructure here on Navajo needs to be elevated, needs to be enhanced. And so we are looking to catch up with the rest of the United States. But we appreciate this funding that is coming. We also, in this pandemic, has magnified all the issues that we have, our shortcomings, lack of broadband, lack of water, lack of power, and the like. And we hope to use this time. It is the Nez Leiser administration's priority to bring back, to hang more fiber for internet, to bury more fiber cable in the ground for internet, and to bring internet to the farthest reaches of our Navajo Nation. Our children deserve it, and our telehealth medicine, our elders and those with health conditions, they deserve it as well. So we're working hard to bring all that to fruition. But we also know we need more water, we need broadband, we need electrical, we need economic development. During this pandemic, our people have had to travel to great distances to the border towns and potentially, becoming infected in larger crowd gatherings there in these border towns. So whether you're shopping at a big box, how do we as leaders mitigate that? And so we also know our nation, we need housing. We need housing, and we needed it yesterday. So we need your prayers and your cooperation and your input, most importantly, your input, helping leadership bring all of these to fruition. Again, we are in this all together. So let's make it happen. So we charge you, President and I, we charge you all. Let's work together on this here. So God bless you. Continue to pray, and President and I continue to pray and lift you all up to be safe. And let's get this great work done and accomplished. God bless you. And thank you, Dr. Fowler, for your leadership as well.
Yeah, Shiash, Koan Hitchakanzi, by Hit and Nitendo. They are Christian Nakatodilzen, Satan Hinat, Unlini, large dot KSK, Kobahe Nitin, Chicago Shidne, Nasnana do Les AD, Kwaje, Shiash, Honorable Seth Damon, Speaker Damon, Navajo Nation Council, A Kwabish Mahasa, Unlini, Aj, large Yasatahi, Ajashin Satan Hitchanana Zitole. Ado non nishtaholno shikero shikne ako disa to papi gata leho na sa batisk ako. Anybody from the speaker's office at this point? Ms. Yazzie? Mr. Damon?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have the floor.
Good morning. Yat ehitbene anofsko ado tratnas nilta nothanigi Western Agency chapters. Yat ehitbene tankidit ni dodlish. Sheya Melinda Arviso Siako Yin Shiedo Tsanajinin Shkon Kia Ani Bashichin Ado Turich Ini Dashichedo Dashchini Dashinale. Just wanted to provide some support and encouragement wording this morning to all of you. As President Nez had mentioned earlier, that the 24th Navajo Nation Council Nabik Eyatkit Committee is resuming work session today in regards to the funding allocation that will be coming down to the nation. From the Speaker's Office, and I wanted to say thank you. Good morning. When the first funding allocation came around, dan hidi ni dolih adon nasko eya doshi non nishigi anada dolih. So we just wanted to give open encouragement and support to everyone on the call, as well as those of you listening in, and that the Speaker's Office is on the line today for this call. And that if you have any questions, to feel free to reach out to our office. behade. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, there on the Chinese. Jo education not only the art assembly so jo a work session jo a deep so to not get into the art she's the pasa ille a conde here quite is no igi nasna dole a kodo has kept as Chief Justice Joanne Jane to Mikema a ko arges the bananas for no ko arges Bakat Zihi Kodoshiyash Mr. Stephen at City, Akwabanahito, Chiyash, Nanahojish.
Yate, yeah, Shema, Dr. Fowler. Shay Stephen B. at City, Dashijine, the Administrative Director of the Courts for the Navajo Nation Judicial Branch. Yate Bene, delegates and elected officials of the Western Agency Council, Western Agency chapters. On behalf of Honorable Chief Justice Joanne B. Jane, I want to welcome you all to this meeting and to express our appreciation from the Judicial Branch for the opportunity to be a part of your discussion, to hear your concerns, and to continue to work with the three branches and all of the communities on successful closing out of our CARES Act and then getting ready for the forthcoming funding called the American Rescue Plan and the Fiscal Recovery Funds. The Judicial Branch has 13 courts across the Navajo Nation. In the Western Agency, there are 3 courts that serve Western Agency chapters: Kayenta Court, Tuba City Judicial District, and Dilcon Judicial District. And work has continued in our courts throughout this whole pandemic. We were operating at reduced level essential services. We continue to hear emergency cases and other cases that we're statutorily required to. And so our courts and our programs, peacemaking and probation and parole services, we continue to offer and do our best to serve the needs of our people, even throughout this entire pandemic, going back to last March 2020. We did receive some funds from the CARES Act last year. We spent approximately $2 million, and what we didn't use, we reverted that back to the hardship assistance for the purposes of helping our Diné people. And so in that regard, we want to express our cooperation and our expectation that we know that there's a lot of need and that these funds can be put to use in a lot of good ways. Within the Judicial Branch, we have developed an initial proposal for the ARP funds, and we do also have some ideas about how we can improve our court system. We certainly have felt the impacts of the pandemic and having to work for over a year at reduced levels. And so we want to come back, and when we get to a point where this pandemic is declared to be over, we do want to bring our courts back into full operations, and we're working on our reopening plan, just like everybody across the Navajo Nation. We will be looking forward to that day when we reopen and we have more in-person service to our court clients and to people coming to our courthouses in our communities. We want to do it in a safe manner. So with all of that, we want to express our appreciation for everybody's questions and for the role that the Judicial Branch will play in helping to rebuild and put things back into place during this closing out of this pandemic and putting things back into a better situation than we were before. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up my welcoming remarks again on behalf of Honorable Joanne B. Jane, Chief Justice. I want to thank you. She Stephen Edsy da shijine tohe glini nishle aro ashihe edish ja totsotni edish che and totachini edish nulla adnenshle. Thank you very much, Dr. Fowler. Shma.
Oh, yeah, she has quite English to nothing any by here needs in. A coffee no slant a codo a hawado the hosnet doors a not initiative that we net a call the up in take case bidi nini out a at a sahnate left on he with the message with the due to the content of the messages look at a bana GD is like on a codo ni hit that tiendo ni hit is it was need PowerPoint presentation niki a de ko you all have phone devices hashino na a pesh behan and here the hallo ko di a katnas nele tapagano pasnas ango ho atal na ko aj ASC dan senido chapter manager coordinator dan hit ni hit o here Asian codon hit and ne don hit katnas nilishin sato bitch os ido jo gala hot a ya is kis quiz net see ne a condition on such it edologic edoshit ne Ado di kodo presentation they allow a we're going to keep you on mute Ado sahona at the dish kitty webex la yeti kape bitch exactly lehi webex it na ko aj chat session date na aj such na ato kido hona bito so Ado a kodo dang ni na ishi sato nik na answer ito li akodi beta of any do Facebook journal kitty aj beta of any ashonda shik edo shidna da hidden sento a hidden zen wal yani ki hinch kid oko job an hizad lini ba ta hosya ta has twido sani in da antina do ani o you go in the husky a teen the other tish Ado you go tkhota be in the husky jo asian kodosa be his chita hadot as Ado the process is lini kon hinat ani ye hodne Asian is that is not start on le a conle na the dish kit odd bahoji a kodo phone number ki ben his kodone I don't pass I don't know les na so like a cheat to tito add phone number ito chito it's odd which is na a kwa na dish kit or le pitchidoni Ado kodo e pakito o that ni shikado shidna Okoshik Adnasna Horjishole update of the Navajo Nation Cares Act funding Shiyaj. Leonard Sosi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler, and Aroyate President, Vice President, and chapter officers, officials, and staff from Western Navajo Agency. Koreshi Chiti, or Tolkane Shliro, Nanishtaje Bashishin, Ashine, the Shichero, Nakhirne, Shna, Washin Ada Gashi Veda Kedo. Or Kitib and Nanigi, Ashibelekana Kache, Bahashne, Dida, Aroni Kro. Banda ikai adijobe hitahokne kat hadahokne. I will proceed in English because of the limited time we have in doing these presentations. But today we are talking about two funds. One is the CARES Fund, which was previously received last year, and the ARPA Fund, the American Rescue Plan Fund. And so for myself, I will be talking about the update on CARES Act funding. And then for those that are not able to see the PowerPoint presentation, I will be talking about the amount of allocations received from U.S. Treasury, the Navajo Nation Council resolutions as signed by the President, appropriating the CARES Fund for various projects and services, and the amount of appropriations. Then the amounts that reverted into the hardship assistance account, and finally the hardship assistance and the balance remaining. As we all know, or many of us know, the CARES Act, which is also known as the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, was passed by Congress and signed into law on March 27, 2020. Before the passage of the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act was the largest economic stimulus plan in the U.S. history and to combat the adverse impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. CARES Act gave direct assistance to Indian tribes, including the Navajo Nation, based on a formula that was developed by U.S. Treasury. At that time, President Nez certified the data submitted to the U.S. Treasury portal, and this resulted in the largest distribution to an Indian tribe. Going to the slide, you will see the allocations that Navajo Nation received 3 times. The first allocation occurred on May 6, 2020, and that was for over $600 million. And then the second allocation was on June 16, and that was for more than $86 million. And the third allocation received by Navajo Nation was over $27 million. And this all added up to over $714 million that was received by the Navajo Nation. And then in June, the Navajo Nation Council passed resolution CJN 47-20 in the amount of over $21 million. And then the council also passed resolution in June of CJN 46, and this was for the amount of $41 million. And then the bigger one that was done in July, CJY 67, and which is pretty much the Infrastructure Act by the Navajo Nation Council, over $475 million. And then finally, the last two, CS 73, passed by the council and signed by the president for over $127 million. And then the final resolution, CS 7420, appropriated over $49 million into the hardship assistance account. Of these amounts that were appropriated by the council and signed by the president, in the CJN 47, over $5 million reverted into the hardship assistance account. And then CJN 46, over $24 million reverted into the hardship assistance account. And then CJY 67, over $194 million reverted into the hardship assistance account. And then CS 73, over $67 million reverted into the hardship assistance account. And of that, all these reversions into the hardship assistance added to up to a total of $292 million, more than that. And then you add that to the amount that was appropriated in CS 74-20 of $49 million, and then the $1,000 that was originally used to set up the hardship assistance account. The whole total amount for hardship assistance comes out to $341 million, $703,000, $780.19. Of this, the Office of the Controller started issuing out hardship checks to the Navajo people based on applications. 294,077 hardship applications were received. Of that, 285,905 checks were distributed or were issued. There are still some remaining issues, what they call remediations. Either the census numbers are off or the address and things like that. And of that, 3,166 applications are still requiring remediation. So as of today, the Office of the Controller is still doing that. And so you add the hardship assistance in the balance, you have 27 million remaining, but that will be applied to the remediations. And then the amount that has yet to be added to the hardship assistance, this is amount like the Net College and others that are still outstanding out there, is 19 million. And then there are still obligations that are still in open commitment, and this is over $2 million. And so there's an interest also on the income, and that's $465,000. So of this, the care balance as of today is remaining is $44,673,500.73. The Navajo Nation Council, a NABI committee, passed a resolution on October 30, setting the deadline and reallocating the funds to hardship assistance plan. Because of these deadlines, these reversions occurred. And then based on certain requests, including requests from President Nez to Congress, the CARES Act was extended by Congress to December 2021. So in the end, it looks like all of the Navajo Nation fund will be used and none of it will revert back to the federal government. So that's what I have for the update on CARES funding. Thank you, Dr. Fowler.
Oh, na cash ya kodo AD peso chidas ani ya na hasne ako ashi ni hale ablakana kachishit etanassende jo or kili benachido o yuko pan haton ne hot akodi pesh pas anen lini ade sa betana hadit ahi o de quishin days ne akodi peso na raj o yuin hichapolia jo sedan hichapolia akonde di hashine line hit in lini peso sabit the has ya do a hit that everyone has ango ni the hot hashine lai kodo sato pachata ya ya sato aita ben da ashne sato ati bin yepes or etne has ne jo at kinane tsago atisa chin nette ko edi chin de kinal kede dan hitno nas na to kon lady nit sopi ad inda it's going to don't include be yati ko ashi ni it's going to de in jo de ko esa to ban ad de shkit so no she ad le a kid inda be na ad kid ole Nasna Horjisheti lessons learned for but on the big give it our best of the future dates. Ani Ninigi Kodon chief of staff Austin Chaco Yana those Shiyash Nana chief of staff.
Akia Kudo Shama. Do Kudo President and Vice President. Good morning everyone. Do Kudo Tatnas Nilatam Kudo Western Navajo Agency Day Kudo. Shin so kudo hanaj kitchen hotel na shi ba ta wil na to she day to don ensinate I skipping snow ki ani ba shi chin aro chishigo ito shi che ko ba na as buta shi na hot a the nan shi do sha kudo di na khata de khata so anigi kudo she ba hoti shi ne ge lessons learned right ya shin so ikida ta but liya kudo di based on the I want to talk a little bit about the money that was given to the Navajo Nation, $714 million given to the Navajo Nation and to expend it within 6 months. And the executive branch was charged with spending all of that money in the time frame that was given to us. And we had challenges in legislative branch. We had challenges in the executive branch, and we also had challenges at the chapter level with these deadlines and also with the guidelines that were provided. I want to go over a little bit about the guidelines. So Washington, so basically days in Treasury gave us some guidelines to work with. The guidelines gave eso chuto ile khit chuto ile choe however, we did not get these guidelines in a timely manner. We didn't know if we could use it for water lines. We didn't know if we could use it for bathroom additions. We didn't know if we could use it for buying heavy equipment. Those are the guidelines that we didn't receive until later. Since they didn't know what was eligible, they had a hard time legislating it. On top of that, we had deadlines set of December 30th to expend these funds, which was 6 months. We implemented some of these projects. We weren't getting any information from the federal government if they were going to extend it. Meaning some of these projects didn't make it because council also passed a deadline date, internal deadline. Meaning some of the projects that we had for the chapters didn't make it because of that. extension ni dayila. By that time, it was too late. The funding deadline and also the guidelines from Treasury. The next slide, I'll talk about administrative and project management. The amount of money that we received, 714 million from the federal government, 6 months that put a big strain on the executive branch. We had to increase responsibilities all the way throughout the whole Navajo Nation structure, meaning we had to have OMB, Fish and Wildlife, Historic Preservation, DCD, all the programs had to concentrate fully on expending these funds. Even on this, for over 6 months, we had to have all of our staff, and we didn't have additional funds to do that, but we did it because we had to limit our other responsibilities in order to do this project. But as President said, we, as the executive branch, we carried out that responsibility and expended most of those dollars that were allocated under this. And moving forward, we'll be taking a look at how we staff up with this next over $1 billion funds that are going to be coming in. The next slide is the project list. We had over thousands of projects that came in from the chapters. We had from the enterprises, from the divisions, and we had some that were going over to the legislative branch. We had some going to the president's office, some going to the division themselves. And we didn't have a centralized location for all these projects to come in. And then there was a lot of confusion on which projects were included in the legislation that the council passed. Some of them didn't meet the full requirement because they were missing documents. We didn't have a centralized location. So that's why we need that. Moving forward, we have a better handle of getting a centralized location for some of these projects, including from the chapters, which Dr. Yellowman will explain later this morning. Moving forward to the next slide, procurement and contracts. This is where we have one of the biggest concerns during moving 714 million to the process is the 164 review and also the contracting process. And that's another issue that was raised, and we, based on the emergency procurement, we were able to move these projects through the system because we had a pandemic, and we used the emergency procurement letters to move a lot of these projects through the system quicker. Today, we don't have that because we have now 3 years to expend those funds, so we may not be able to use that procurement, emergency procurement letters to move a lot of these projects that we are expecting to move through the executive branch. So we're going to be working with the legislative and the president's office to address this before we move forward with the projects. The next slide is project development phase. Shovel-ready projects. What do we mean by shovel-ready? We were able to move 714 million, and half of that through NTUA and NECA because they were shovel-ready. They have all of the requirements. When we say shovel-ready, we're talking about project planning. Deep project planning is preliminary engineering, cultural, land withdrawal, home site leases, archaeological clearance. A.F, that's project planning. A.S. And then the next step is what we have, project design. We have all of the projects designed. All of that has been done. And then the next phase is project constructions, which means we have a contractor on board. Project ready. So in the development of the program, working with NTUA and NECA through Dr. Yellowman's office, these are the items that we already had in place and they were ready to go. Now they were able to do power line, water line, bathroom additions quickly because all of these steps were had taken place. We're going to be reviewing this step moving forward into the ARP project listing. Finally, the last slide, chapter consultation and challenges. We know chapters moving all their projects moving forward. We didn't have a system in place to address all of those projects simply because we had some chapters working with the legislative, some chapters working with the executive, some chapters working with different divisions, and that's the reason why we had that miscommunication. Today we're taking a different approach to this. That's why we're having these meetings, and that's why Dr. Yellman has been having these meetings with the chapters so they're included, and also going to vet all those projects that are coming in by the DCD and the administration. So kodo na iti kidishi do khayu kodo mihet holo eshi na hot bah do afi bin yet otski lo jeda hastani hot an china asu ai shinan ta khat ala shema Dr. Fowler, I turn it over to you.
Yana na te shikero shne kodo AD so neza tina tita ta te mil so oita opone line hichite ta ko ya his tante zede chi don il ot ya behes ani shin sa khata delia akwande di behes ani line to tili hiche elia de na oyo okedo denete ado tin ta neshinte Hashine la enzende jun hit api o UD Tatnas nile bisnahas ango jo ade tatnas nile bagan bisnahas ango chapter house ade go you asa at the meal hone lato balaho projects khatahas so adi ki yadi to at and the thousand that you at you go branch go dan da huidne just sa belanda is ni adonal so shovel ready ni at and not so el kit nas ne la ot at e pa ta hit ako you shin la ho ota akoto kata del kata hites akonde to at nasco ne je asa hiki pas to ni ado sa as you go ado Belani lehi procurement is nini ye go ben in na hoti jo kodon hi base mahasa anen lini don hinat lini ado itila day bin not ani lini kajo ya skinane khale ta kajo skin lo ho jisto la jo ta na hat esto ako ado ti dan ado ta ko ba hanet do jo ben ye ko ho an hisne o to das ano kodo Adnik Echabananish Nasna, the JD Kat Navajo Department of Transportation, Chiaj, Mr. Silversmith, Nanaho Ataleshi Yaj. You have the floor, Mr. Silversmith.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler. Thank you for that introduction. And good morning, everyone. Good morning, Western Agency. And also wanted to mention my appreciation to President Nez and Vice President Leiser, 24th Navajo Nation Council, our judicial branch, the remaining members of our legislative branch, our chapter leadership, and our community leaders, all you chapters who represent the Western Agency. Thank you for being the participants in this morning's session here. My portion, my segment of this overall Navajo Nation presentation is I want to share additionally what Mr. Chaco had mentioned, what Mr. Chaco, our Chief of Staff, had started here, is additional lessons learned that we had learned during this CARES Act era. Second slide I wanted to share with you is, as you heard earlier from our President Nez, in June of 2020 last year, about 7-8 months ago, the Navajo Nation created a Navajo Nation white paper, and its intention of this document was to forward it on to our leadership. The contents of this document was a document that was submitted to the Trump-Pence administration last year And this white paper signifies and it emphasized the changes that need to change and revisions to our longstanding regulations, policies that prevent us as a nation from advancing our projects successfully, expeditiously, and quickly. And some of those that I'm talking about, our development includes our infrastructure, housing, utilities, telecommunications, transportation, and anything that requires an environmental compliance or right-of-way document. So in that document, it was submitted and it was received favorably last year. From that, it produced a favorable discussions with leadership last year. And we did meet with Secretary Bernhardt last year, Department of Interior, Secretary Bernhardt on some of these issues. The third slide is what specifically was contained in this document. I'm not going to go through each of them, but as a whole, there was two main portions that covered in this document. That was the list of proposed revisions in federal law or regulation. And the second one was list of proposed changes in federal policies, like I just mentioned. In there, there was suggested revisions to our right-of-way application process, creating utility corridors for all our utilities, gas, water, sewer, electrical, and so forth. It even mentioned about the grazing permitting segment of our Navajo Nation that we needed to revise, telecom, and so forth. Next slide, slide number 4. Additionally, what this Nez Liza administration we had accomplished this year is the Ne'atkin Bahanet Navajo Road Emergence document that was recently completed as of last month, as within the last 2-3 weeks ago. It was created by Office of the President, Vice President, Navajo Nation Washington Office, Ms. Santi Lewis and her team, and us, Navajo Division of Transportation. This document was oriented and focused strictly for transportation processes that we go through on an everyday basis. This document emphasized, again, the need to change our policies and regulations that will advance our projects quickly, our bridges, our dirt roads, our highways, and our bridges, and our airports as well. It was submitted recently to the Biden-Harris administration, President Biden and Vice President Harris. And it was submitted additionally also to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and other entities that are our partners as well. The next slide, the topics specifically, what it contained in this document was a change in our environmental compliance system, a consensus of our road definition of our road maintenance, and finally, a few more items there. Our tribal priority allocation funds should be used strictly on BIA inventoried routes and also tribal routes as well. We also needed, in this document also contained our secretarial oversight to be lessened. We as a Navajo Nation can advance our projects because we've done this before. We wanted to reignite the standalone bridge program. We have 179 bridges approximately on our Navajo Nation, and we wanted funding to us as a nation to receive those funds and specifically apply them for those bridge needs. We wanted to restart that program. The next slide that I want to share with you, this forthcoming American Rescue Plan Act, which is the main intent of today's session here, specifically for transportation, we want to fund projects that can be ready quickly within the next year, year and a half. We want to provide these funds that are forthcoming equal distribution to all 5 agencies. We like to improve some of the most frequently traveled and worst roads. That includes our earth roads, our highways, our bridges, and so forth. These are the nation's assets that needs improvements. The last items D through H is specifically what we want to apply the American Rescue Plan Act funds toward. Like I mentioned, bridges that have poor sufficiency ratings, we want to replace those. Provide funds for pavement preservation. All of our highways need some form of of improvement. We want to apply some funds toward that. We want to improve our earth roads. We want to elevate them from a dirt road surface to a soil stabilized surface or a double chip seal surface. Each year we get funds from the Federal Highway Administration, but these funds aren't sufficient to cover our other needs, our new construction needs. So we want to address these shortfalls. Also an earth road. An earth road is defined as an existing dirt road. A dirt road that we travel every day, that's an earth road. We want to develop new routes. We want to develop new routes that in each of our communities, we like to add to our inventory a new route. So we want to address that as well. The next slide is miscellaneous information that I wanted to share with you all. We recently met with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and his team. In that meeting was a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, Mr. Orlando Teller. So in this meeting, we discussed the transportation white paper that I just briefly mentioned about. And that meeting came out with positive results. Mr. Buttigieg and his team were very favorable to continuing corresponding and meeting with the Navajo Nation in regards to improvements in transportation. Additionally, on top of what's receiving that we as a nation will be receiving is a Coronavirus Relief and Supplemental Appropriation Act. Across the nation, all tribes will be sharing $114.5 million. Of that amount, the Navajo Nation will be receiving $16.5 million. What's unique about that is that it can only be applied to maintenance needs. So we can't use those funds for construction purposes. It can only be used to maintain our bridges, our dirt roads / earth roads, and our pavements. Next slide. Challenges and risks associated with what's forthcoming, what we presently experience every day. When these funds come to the Navajo Nation, you'll see before you items 1 through 9, areas of concern that we need to address as a nation. With these large amounts of money that's coming for transportation purposes, it's going to be difficult to hire and retain Navajo DOT staff. It's difficult right now. Right now we have several vacancies, so we need to improve in that regard. And then I'm not going to go through each of them, but some that are of big significance is we want to continue our coordination with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The team over there at Navajo Region Office has been very responsive, and we are have established a great partnership with them. We need to secure our right-of-ways quickly and efficiently. That's going to be key here, especially when we want to construct new routes. Finally, in my last slide, what I want to share with everyone is we as a nation, when we come together as a team, President's Office, Council, Judicial Branch, our esteemed leadership at the chapter level, and our community leaders, what you see before you is a result of that teamwork and what we have established in the last year and a half. We were successfully completed projects with FNF, Navajo Engineering Construction Authority, and there's many other subcontractors that we recently achieved some success with new construction projects across our nation. So on behalf of the Navajo Division of Transportation, Garrett Silversmith, thank you for allowing me to share our insight and our feedback with you on this Monday morning, this Wednesday, with our Navajo Nation listeners. Thank you.
Kodo eya yatunahon adi kinahal kego nalsos the great ekne ilya to atint patati tahana rando it's in esto trota ad deni kedi ad don't atselate not ani dan lini ad quishi but essasi clean ako adon he an and hit the end law Orlando Teller edo ad but essasi clean to ad non-nation lini bebet ozi ado sa Pete Buttigieg olia Secretary Bernhardt atolia jo koto behes ani lini kajo hata the dolni to saho oyo as nakahas do sato be nan hit nal ido les do ha jo e be has ani lini sato hata de di ni tadi no e hot nal sos le gre hatelia todo tin e pata a konde di chia ya hone etini o you ani ben hit in the has te a kodi at agency ni hit hata hos zogi at etanel entosa a lot to sa ko yakta ko at en nanel o aro di earth ro isnini eti a stage kahonda a jehijo e ahisne aroti kodo kinal kede peson hiche bo kanton hiche chete ahigi jo e hit ala eti itin liniki a shift a papato zo jo ado ya na hasne ako he ha shi yar nas nana e kodo shi chen lini eti kinal kede na nashi a St. Louis Navajo Nation Washington Office. Ishi kodo dik a peso today ahiya nahatolne. Miss Lewis, you have the floor.
Ayehe Shema, Dr. Fowler. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President Leiser, Speaker David, Chief Justice, Western Navajo officials and colleagues. St. Louis, Yanishia. Good morning, everyone. I currently serve as the Executive Director for the Navajo Nation Washington Office, and I will be sharing 5 slides with you today. Give you a brief overview. The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP, was signed into law March 11th, 2021 by President Biden. And it is a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus bill designed to help the United States recover from the economic and health impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to the ARP, Congress passed the CARES Act, as well as the Consolidated Appropriations Act to help the federal government respond to the ongoing pandemic. The ARP is the 4th major legislative item in a list of COVID-19 pandemic legislation, and there is over $31.2 billion available for tribal governments and communities. And what the Navajo people should expect is that much of this funding be available in the next, this year, but also in the next coming years. So first on our list, so you should see our slides on your screen if you're able to see it. So first on our list is the ARP Fiscal Recovery Fund, or the FRF. So this is something similar to the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or the CRF, under the CARES Act. But what is different is that this fund is more than double what CARES provided. Under CARES, only $8 billion was available. This time, $20 billion is available for tribal governments. $1 billion is to be allocated equally among the 574 federally recognized tribes. And for the remaining $19 billion, the U.S. Department of Treasury gets to decide how to allocate those funds. Congress also made it clear that the ANCs, or Alaska Native Corporations, will not get any of the allocation, which was highly contested during the CARES distribution. The Department of Treasury completed tribal consultation, and President Nez talked about what the Navajo Nation advocated for. And so again, the Department of Transportation completed tribal consultation on how to allocate FRF funds. And so we should anticipate those funds being distributed to tribal governments fairly soon. And similar to the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the FRF funds can only be used on specific purposes. For example, funds may be used to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts. Funds may also be used to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers of the tribal government that are performing such essential work, or providing grants to eligible employers that have eligible workers who perform essential work. Funds may also be used to replenish to replenish lost revenues of tribal governments to fund essential government services due to COVID-19. Lastly, funds may be used to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. The Department of Treasury usually issues guidance to help tribal governments and entities on purposes of these funds or how it can be used. As of now, they have not provided any guiding information on the expenditure of the FRF. But what we do know is that FRF funds may only be used to cover costs incurred by December 31st, 2024. So I'm going to jump down to the third line item. Again, briefly, IHS was allocated over $6 billion, and those funds are intended to support the delivery of healthcare and the operation of Indian Health Services facilities. Similarly, now I'm going to item number 4. BIA is allocated $900 million. The majority of these funds will fund government services, public safety and justice, social services, child welfare services, and other related expenses. BIA will likely provide the majority of these funds through the tribal government line, allowing tribes to reprogram funds for other purposes. And the distribution will be based on tribal enrollment data. Slide 2, please. Thank you. BIE will be allocated $850 million. This fund will be allocated by the BIE Director for Programs and Activities of the 183 BIE funded K-12 and tribal colleges and universities. BIE plans to distribute these funds using their existing formula. These funds can be used to develop and implement a learning management system and related information technology. Funds can also be used to make facility-related improvements to ensure adequate ventilation and support for social distancing. Yesterday, the Office of the President and Vice President issued a press release informing the Navajo public that more than $205 million has been dispersed to Navajo schools by BIE. I'm going to go to the second line item now. For housing assistance, $750 million will be allocated to housing and urban development. These funds will be available until September 30th, 2025. $450 allocated for the Native American Housing Block Grant Program using the same formula. So our Navajo Housing Authority should receive its respective share. These funds may be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID, including maintaining normal operations and funding affordable housing activities. $280 million allocated for the Indian Community Development Block Grants. Grants awarded under this line item may be used to address emergencies that constitute imminent threats to the safety and health and are designed to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. For both of these allocations, costs incurred after January 21st, 2020 are allowable. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So last spring, we knew that coronavirus was reaping havoc across our communities, and to reduce the transmission of coronavirus across the country, most of our nation's schools and libraries shut their doors and transitioned to virtual learning. And today, many schools and libraries remain fully or partially closed. Students who lack home broadband access and were therefore caught in the homework gap before the pandemic now find themselves at risk of being unable to participate in any remote learning. At the same time, the closure of many libraries means that library patrons who were previously dependent on computer and internet access at their local libraries lost all broadband access. In response, Congress allocated over $7 billion for the Emergency Connectivity Fund to reimburse costs associated with eligible equipment for eligible schools and libraries. Excuse me, could you go back to the last slide? I think, yes, thank you. Eligible equipment includes Wi-Fi hotspots, modems, routers, devices that combine, devices that combine a modem and router, and connected devices. Eligible schools and libraries include tribal elementary schools, tribal secondary schools, and tribal libraries. The FCC is promulgating rules and recently sought comments on the Emergency Connectivity Fund for Educational Connections and Devices to address the homework gap during the pandemic. Comments were due April 23rd, 2021, and more information will be soon available. The second line item, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, $500 million is allocated and is to be divided equally among tribal governments using a formula established by the Secretary that considers employment and economic data. More information will be shared when it becomes available. Thank you. This is close to my final slide, but over $498 million for the Homeowner Assistance Program. This amount represents a 5% set aside for tribal governments to mitigate financial hardships with the COVID pandemic. Funds may be used for mortgage payment assistance, utilities, internet service, homeowners insurance, etc. Applications are now accepted by NHA. You do not have to own a home on the reservation. You may own a home anywhere in the U.S. so long as you are eligible. The Homeowner Assistance Program is really intended to help homeowners remain in their homes. So if you're experiencing some financial hardship, that is a program you might be interested in looking into. Can everyone still see the slides? Because I think it's grayed out.
Just keep going.
Okay, so the second line item is the Pandemic Emergency Fund. $75 million is available for grants to Indian tribes and territories that may be allocated by the HHS Secretary as they deem appropriate. An additional pot of money is $15 million for water assistance, and this is intended to be awarded in grants to Indian tribes to assist low-income households with income equal to or less than 150% of the federal poverty line. And lastly, $1 million for survivors of domestic violence to support the National Domestic Violence Hotline Grant Program. And to the last slide, please, my final slide. So just to briefly recap, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2020 was signed into law March 11, 2021. The law prescribes a variety of deadlines for releasing funds to Indian country. For example, the Department of Treasury is required to disperse FRF funds, the $20 billion, within 60 days of enactment to the extent practicable. Not later than 180 days after enactment, the Secretary shall award grants to eligible entities, and this is in respect to HHS's Native American Language Preservation and Maintenance Grant Program. With respect to the BIE, which was distributed yesterday, they had up to 45 days to disperse those funds. And then the last bullet addresses the State Small Business Credit Initiative, where the requirements are tribal governments that wish to participate in the program must file a notice of intent with the Secretary no later than 30 days after the date of enactment. 2, funds must be allocated within 60 days of the enactment. So with respect to the State Small Business Credit Initiative, it's really intended to help support small business owners who have to provide low guarantee assistance and to help them meet their obligations. With that program, we are waiting for the Department of Treasury to issue the document that we must file. So yesterday they provided an update, and that document will soon be made available to tribal governments. So they are actually late in helping implement that program. So the ARP is historic in that it provides over $31.2 billion to tribal communities and governments, and resources are going to be made available via allocations or grant opportunities. And if you know someone who is a small business owner and you're looking for additional resources, please visit the Division of Economic Development's website, navajobusiness.com. Okay, thank you, Dr. Fowler. Shema, back to you.
Na kia e kodo kinahal kada ada e nihidne evangelist ko kodo person hichide ahi yahod ne akonde jo art en bitsiji bako e do sheet e nihit e konne la da khashit ashi e istatabat nitsa ako e istata soike bik kodo ishahi de ku e nihidne en lini bichide do ta upon the deep as ani bella as the 80 was cheese at the hoyo casnet itan she kinahal de bella as li ado peso between slijibit I in lay his hunting chicha aj she koto peso in hichotal net o koti peso in hichol nehi e dik I zefito tratna he aj she chito in the pat koto FRF Utility a Physical Recovery Fund with Yabalagana Kajo Oko Ado di Peso in the height on that the dot Alijo Hashino San Ado Hashine Not Natani Ni Dini Kodo Niki the Nebaska Zogi Jo a tribal consultation date ne o you Sahota Isini Sado Sahon Hizata dis Ado Besh Bahasa Anin Lini da Ado Nihit Tatnas Nilino Sini Hashino Lashi Aje da isino stato nihizachi da distanco e he ako e aje peso haita e chita hete dot ali eti nihitene lini wall tra ibikeho jodo ado shin art ene don his all trata ado hane la e kon the neber hot of ka ota inishto Navajo Nation employees eto a ede yata o yugon da anisho ako edo sato na kapido so tadi no kodojo pa tadi no adi kinal keda jo e na so seketa bedi nini edo sato ho talia e kodo oche das ano ye na hasne kache nas nana dole AADCD Argent Division of Community Development Dr. Pearl Yellowman e kodo na hiso as ko na he edo shne ta isino tai Kanas etino ashla ane and that's of his kodamakai bikeho. At this time, we'd like to move forward to Dr. Yellowman. You have the floor.
Yeah, Shema. Adonana, yeah, do yat a minute. Shkedo shidene she Pearl Yellowman and she. Auto Division of Community Development, Auto Banashnish, Auto and Shnigi 8 Sana Bisinch, though Kizafana Bashishin, Tobahanda Shiche, Auto, Hanala Native. Aroshe IC Tonanis Diza Ada Nasha. So good afternoon, almost good afternoon. Aro Hiha President Jonathan Nez, Aro Akeda Vice President Lizer. Thank you. Thank you for being on the call with us this morning and really driving these conversations. Thank you to the Speaker's Office, Speaker Seth Damon, and to the 24th Navajo Nation Council. And thank you to Madam Chief Justice Joanne Jane to her leadership and judicial branch. Adonana to our chapter officials, honorable chapter officials, and our agency council officials, President Kitso, Mr. Small Canyon, and Miss Candace from Cameron area, and to our chapter staff. And we have many staff also on the call from the Division of Community Development. And to my colleagues, thank you very much, colleagues, for being on the call and presenting information. If we can go on to the slides, please. We've been sharing this presentation. The Division of Community Development, after exiting the CARES Act funds last year, we started to prepare for ARP. We created an internal ARP. We actually have several ARP internal teams. Some of those include our partners and stakeholders, and some of those include our internal team, our financial internal team, and many of those also include working with the chapters as well. We are on task to present 2 ARP proposals. One is the housing ARP plan, and the second are the chapter expenditure or chapter project listings for an expenditure plan. The month of April has been dedicated to communicating with all 110 chapters, and by the end of this week, we will have completed that goal. And so we appreciate all of the agency officials working with us and accepting the agenda, and all of the chapters providing feedback, providing comments, asking great questions, and working together. So we appreciate all of that. Our coordination, again, is with 110 chapters, our 5 agencies, 24th Navajo Nation Council, Washington, D.C. office, Office of the President, Vice President, and a legal firm, Holland and Knight. We've been receiving information from them, so we appreciate that. Our partners are growing daily. Our partners include NTUA, Jemez Electric, Continental Divide, NECA, IHS, Water Branch, Water Resources, NHA, RAMA, Navajo Utility Authority, and INDOT. And that list continues to grow as we prepare our project listing. Next slide, please. Of course, when we talk about ARP, DCD, and the 110 chapters, we are a strand of all of the projects that will be compiled with the executive branch and working collaboratively with the legislative branch. There's also projects being proposed by the judicial branch. So the DCD project listing is one avenue of a total combined project listing that will be considered for ARP. As such, we believe that the chapter projects are the anchor for many of the project listings to be considered for ARPA. And we advocate that the chapters are the anchor projects. We have multiple listings that we will be going through and reviewing. Many of those are the chapter-based projects. Those are projects that you already have at the chapter level. You may already be monitoring those projects, or you may already be implementing those projects. Some of those projects may already be in your ICIP listing. We also have current infrastructure projects under CPMD, which includes CHID, rural addressing, and our various partners. Those start to branch out to regional projects. We also have regional project listings. That's the 24-inch pipeline from Gallup to San Juan. We have regional projects that include roads or broadband. Those are larger projects that we also monitor or house at DCD. Next slide, please. We are seeing a request for specialty projects. Specialty projects include projects as a result of last year's experience with the pandemic, which we are still experiencing now, but some concern or questions have been brought up on warehouses. Warehouses would be considered a specialty project because warehouses may not be in an ICIP listing. There may not be any planning or design, and we may have very few warehouses ready for construction ready, or that would be considered construction ready, but they are being considered, and chapters are asking about warehouses. Other specialty projects have been surfacing as well as a priority for some chapters. And again, chapters represent the people. You know what project listings will best fit the needs of the people in your community. Here are a listing of some of the projects that we have under Citizen. We have Citizen projects for year 1, year 2, year 3 under Citizen. We also have New Mexico projects, capital outlay projects, and TIF projects. We also have bathroom additions under New Mexico projects. We also have bathroom additions that we used or submitted for CARES. And prior to Citizen, there were bathroom additions. Water Resources also have bathroom additions in which they work with OEH on. So we have other listings when we talk about bathroom additions. We also completed some cistern, septic, and wastewater projects last year, and as such find the need to have IHS more accessible and available to the nation this year. And we appreciate their responsiveness to our requests. And many of you chapters have asked for NHA and IHS to be more accessible and more responsive to coordinating our project listings. So we've reached out to them and they have been responsive. Also through the Office of the President and Vice President, the President has been asking for those partners to be easily available or readily available to help assist chapters in coordinating these listings. We have projects under rural addressing, solar projects, and again, the specialty projects that I mentioned earlier, the warehouse projects. Next slide, please. We did issue a memo at the start of April in anticipation of preparing for the ARPA funds. Again, the ARPA funds have not arrived to the nation, nor have the ARPA guidelines, the U.S. Treasury guidelines, but in anticipation of those funds coming, and our goal is to begin vetting and reviewing project listings in the month of May, moving towards cross-checking many of these projects. And then possibly our ultimate goal is to provide leadership with an expenditure plan of projects that best represent your community. Our original deadline for project priority and review was April 20, this week, April 29th. We did extend that. I am very thankful for our chapter leaders. I work for over 300 chapter officials. It's 110 chapters, and we have over 300 chapter officials. We have agency council and 24 Navajo Nation delegates that I work closely with. And based on good feedback and your leadership, we extended the date to May 19th. And we hope that that date is a little bit more feasible and flexible. We understand that some requests have come to DCD for technical assistance, uploading into the portal system, additional questions on coordinating with IHS or NHA, additional questions on some chapters that may prioritize, for example, a C-store in their community. So coordinating that community with DED, or coordinating, another example is a judicial branch or a judicial complex. Is the chapter listing the judicial complex under their priority listing, or is it under the judicial branch? There's a need for cross communication and cross referencing on those project listings. And I feel that we've been demonstrating those communication pathways for chapters to communicate and reach out to the necessary partners. So I appreciate the feedback and appreciate your understanding as chapter officials, chapter leaders, and chapter staff. We continue to have staff available for technical assistance on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Many of you have reached out directly to myself or to CPMD staff, ASC, or SPPS staff. We have those staff on call right now to field additional questions. And we're trying to be as responsive as we can and working into the late evenings. And I appreciate the staff on the call. So we'll continue to provide this information on our DCD website. And I'll provide my cell number. And again, here is our ARPA email and a link created. I just want to double check with staff on the line that this link that we have here is the correct link. So I don't want to cause any confusion, but next slide, please. I also want to add that we did put in a request for 3 projects. That may feel restrictive, or it may feel very limited, but we are in discussion of opening or considering alternative projects, alternative 1 and alternative 2 projects. But keep in mind that increases the total number of projects being submitted on behalf of DCD. As it is right now, if we're considering 3 projects per chapter, we're looking at 330 projects roughly. If we extend that to alternative 1 and alternative 2, then we're looking at 500 projects. Our goal collectively is to make sure that the projects are feasible within the ARPA timeline and guidelines, and they can get completed. We want our projects to be completed, and that we encourage chapters to submit those projects that have been cleared or have gone through their ARC clearances and are considered construction ready. And that would be our safest route. So we're still fielding those questions and still preparing and moving forward. So I'll come back to the PowerPoint here. Our goal for April was to communicate with all 110 chapters and assist in prioritizing the projects, moving towards the portal submission, providing a user guide for the portal submission. So thank you to our staff for working on that, fielding many of the questions, and being available for technical assistance. So we appreciate chapter staff and chapter officials reaching out to DCD, ASC, and CPMD. And just keep those questions coming. Keep calling us and keep requesting for technical assistance or one-on-one time, and just making sure that we submit those projects carefully and appropriately. So next slide, please. May, I already feel that some of the goals that we have for May are happening. Many of my colleagues here on the line, NDOT, DED, Division of Natural Resources, have already begun cross-referencing some of these projects. Some chapters may identify windmills or water projects, water-related projects or water infrastructure-related projects as one of your top priority projects. As such, we'll need to cross-reference with what Water Resources is listing for some of their project priorities, and make sure that there's no duplication and that those projects will be considered as a priority, either on behalf of the chapter or behalf of the nation. So we're already moving towards those conversations in May. We have been mobilizing the month of April, and now we're moving towards uniforming all of these projects into our portal system and begin to cross-reference those with our brother and sister divisions. So I appreciate that they're on the call, and I appreciate that they have been fielding questions from the chapters all day yesterday and today. So I thank them for that. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, the next slide will show that in June, we anticipate some funding possibly to arrive to the nation, where we want to present a feasible expenditure plan that supports all of the chapters, that best represents the community needs, and that is, again, feasible within the ARPA year 1, year 2, and year 3. We still have quite a bit of coordination to do. We still have quite a bit of communication to have between our partners, NHA, NECA, IHS, and many others. So the work that you are already doing at the chapter level is has been visible. We see that and we acknowledge that. Many chapters are moving towards chapter planning meetings, discussing these projects, coordinating meetings with DCD, CPMD, ASC, and moving towards supporting documentation for their project portal submission, and then communicating with your agency council as well, council officials. And we appreciate that line of communication that has already been established, and the process that has been established. So next slide, please. Next slide. This may already be familiar with some of the viewers on the line, but this is the Navajo Nation ARPA funding application. There are 8 sections to this. We did send out the user guide. It's also available on our DCD webpage. Before you submit or begin submitting information, many of you have been calling out to Ms. Denise Copeland or Shayla or CPMD. We appreciate that. They're on this call right now if you have any questions, or you can reach us directly. We have been receiving submissions already. We do have data that we're keeping track of. We know, based on the projects that are being submitted, how many are not funded. We know how many have matching funds. We know how many have been funded through citizen or other other forms of funding sources. We know how many have their clearances and how many do not have clearances. We know the locations of some of those projects that have already been submitted, and we know them by chapters, and we know them by delegate regions. So appreciate all of the back work that is happening on the back stages of this data collection. This really truly is a monumental moment for us and task on the chapters and DCD. It was evident that the chapters needed to have a better experience than last year, and to be present here. And with that comes greater responsibility for us, for the chapters, and for DCD. But I appreciate all of the input and the leadership from the chapters, and continue that we keep these lines of communication open, and anything that needs to be attended to or addressed, please let me know. Let me know how we can better improve things and improve our systems. Some of the comments that were made earlier by Chief of Staff Chaco on improving some of the lessons learned from CARES. We experienced a lot as the chapters and DCD, and we want to change that for the ARPA funds, all the way from procurement to eligible items, understanding that having better, faster information and working closely with our partners and making sure that the Navajo people and the chapters, as they relate to infrastructure, are direct beneficiaries of the ARPA funds. And so we have an opportunity to improve the quality of living through our infrastructure related projects. And I appreciate leadership support on that, and appreciate all of your hard work on tending to these infrastructure related projects. So next slide. Some other areas that I'm working on our capacity plan. I'll be able to present this to leadership shortly. And we're also working on our ARPA housing plan that we presented to Navigiyatke about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So again, capacity plan as to how we're going to complete these projects in the next 3 years, given that some considerations and recommendations are taken from DCD and taken by leadership on addressing some areas in procurement, addressing some areas working with DED on the NABOA, and working with our continued leadership. In closing, I just want to say that yesterday the Navajo Nation reported 0 cases, and I'm very thankful for that. Thankful for all of the chapters' hard work throughout the last 14 or 15 months. And we still have some work to do. But please continue to be safe. Take care of yourself and take care of our Western agency. Shamath, go back to you.
Ja, nanet to ikiha kodo nikis na hasin na ido ni nan spitske do betzili hadin na ba kojo asto bantit koso o yushi nanish iket nasnel oti trat nasnel bagambas nas ango an hin khanas la shikedos na kodos che ya hol na ARPA timul yet la large nabat nildo eshi ikhistel nisho ben hitchinda has kodo yedel nisho eto na khayos nata akonde jo an hini eto to jo ba huil neta akoti ya hol neigi di nat sos khata del ne khanas test anlet atso nast et at yor karona shi nat sos khata del ne khalya Akondon they can have good di big ni hate ati papa ada peso okone large in de papa ako osh papa zdado le kodoshi na hatan lini na tosata del ne ejo pat hi kre ado kodo etlate na tani dan lini da isa ako at etena ben hikuishna ba ashton nen hitishne aj ahoji na atetesh kilno sondo khatestin no sono 80 besh bahana tabich osi. You can text this number or call this number if you want to speak or have a question. The number is 928-955-6645. Call that number first or text that number 928-955-6645. O a koto naka Israel yushisha no at o el tranaka ako tabich hosna nast na ki te be nast istla hastran di ado istla aj tabich hosna ado koto *6 unmute adosli kwa na adikit lini bakuito aso tila te na tani lini koto da is eshin na adikidi ba the dot ko ade khashi khosna iki koto an hiche dos nis aje bichomosne kwa hol yehwin shye ado tana tani shle ado tra nazn le bechaz ande ade hot khashne olye oko ko an khaho atole shik edo shidne oko asha kodona ati kitty ya Dr. Yellowman, one question here. Okay, I think it says verse 1. Okay, we'll go ahead and open the floor to Darlene Pine with Navajo Mountain Chapter Vice President. Darlene Pine, you have the floor for a question.
Good morning.
Oh, Yate
Bene. Darlene Pino, Pino. Yate do a shin, Schnedo Chishe Pashes Chin, Ado Kia Ani, the Chilo, go to Chini, the Chanel. Ado Tide Ani, in the 4 months on the job with the Nazis on chapter as a vice president. Even this kiddie, excuse me, the priority under Pearl Yellowman from DCD, the priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, with some of the information that was included that's already been going on in the CIP, ICIP. That the Yastio record because Aniki ACA and CSC other information you need into the wind system. Accord the chapter renovation Accord everything is being said is shovel ready Accord the newly elected chapter officials though community members, community members. A multi-purpose building. Yat nido that's a brand new project. Although we have 3 years to probably 6 months to get it together, all the information and the cost and scope of work on all that. The volunteers that are in project management positions or construction just at some point, Mr. James the renovation in the highest CSC joined the Hite chapter official Nitlin Baban Seekins. Although the multi-purpose building our chapter house big only chapter hall. Our meetings begin not late. Our clubsy office hello this. Our probably E911 dispatch be hello this. Administration office be hello this. Conference office be hello. Senior citizens be hello this. Our in the storage, the delivery portion that be hello this. Although the nobody is. Although at the existing chapters, the Apahas, Kito, the Christian renovate and Nalia buildings. Other because there's an EPA concerns the Christian trading post on the Genehaki, Christian fuel tank is in the Leshisato, Hajo, I suppose, Hatashi Kishina Hayata. Bahaotrito Akashi Hazort at a Toslihoto Nindi, Benta Tostido Sehoto Nindi Adolia Takit. Although the multi-purpose building, I thought Kushina Hayata to Bahaotri at our chapter. It was brought before our chapter members, the ASK Costo the Crucia Cotatini. I could oil they had this Jensen. So although the presentation, the creation or EK not non-state the law enforcement akwagi ayu ala pahatten khalek elan soye to jae we're going to have a lot of we have issues already, but law enforcement doesn't have the community we have to go through Kayenta. So it takes 2-3 hours for them to arrive on the location. Law enforcement sub chapters and so cancer this multi-purpose building it's not shovel ready, but I get the multi-purpose building idea. So what I actually a comment or question Thank you. Back to you.
Oh, ik heb strategie stage dat ik heb ado kodo come in light or eba hier niet een ado de te labet has aja itilite on lini Jesse Delmar je Asian sato bet kodo ne sato dat ko enki kado aha do zihigi ko bakuido ako kodai das ketas ako Marietta Betoni nana dole ado Willis Begay or Jato that ado Jero Clipso ado nahan Ellen Fowler without case so shikedo shine ado di time bahanosen na ati kidit edo comedy shate ado skonho zero ado na khatet ni hits or kido ya aje unanswered questions. They can aarpa@nndcd.org. Ako katnas nana Marietta Bedoni nanaho atole. Jama, Miss Bedoni. Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Is this Miss Bedoni?
Yes, this is Marietta Bedoni.
Okay, you have the floor. Oh, you have the floor.
Shaya kila chini don't be Bedoni, but just china ro tanja kine da shichedo kia ani edashinan. Aljato chapter chapter secretary and treasurer nshlo. Ako di okaho jija da beso jidet hatno bayat kia da kuda I da put added not so the cat not that all they stop and yes added the need hat no yes that lay hat no a cook a did the crediting so that ato not fat nick had another I did get I didn't log on until Dr. Yeoman was speaking, but I still have the question and I'm still wondering for answers or if any comments. Did a beso no dahagi todo electric and arin da yo ni no. At the chapter level on go nan hide kid. The NTUA de go shikat or los no sendo at the shadows if no sendo go. NTUA requires a home site lease no. OEH to go they don't require a home site lease or it's just that there's a structure no of course let and hit that no audit man hit kit ado di sanat lehi ado oyo ben ya is this hit audit no da sate the sanda lehi hit na iya da hit benchmark the anhit ya da hit all called then ato in the mahalan a call I'd love that the husband go hit you see these only so we can maximize the benefit for the people that need help. So I don't know the second one you get the Navajo Enterprises at Ninigi say no you projects just behind that say dobe about it call that there's nishan aro ape o dan nada nish like NTUA or ape electrical posts how they need the never cut or wasn't over or to me. They're backed up. Our projects are backing up. How come we can't contract out? So limit the benefits or just cut off Navajo enterprises from having to compete with us chapters that are really trying to help the people, because it seems like they're just more the enterprises. There's more helping themselves. They're already benefiting by the fact that when we ask for assistance to do the water line and the electrical line, we're already getting the money. They're already getting the funding. Of course, why can't we branch out to other entities outside or other businesses that we can contract with?
Ake Paanadins Kidigi Kodoshe Dr. Yellowman, A Kodon Hichahadodze, A Navajo Enterprise or into A Auto Projects Backup the Nini. Dr. Yellowman?
Yeah, Shema. Nana here. Shanant, Miss Bedoni from Ojeto, Yahtzee. I probably will call on some of my colleagues here from the Division of Natural Resources. They work closely with lands, they have lands department that work closely with NHA, NTUA on the home site leases. The home site leases under the NTUA are their internal requirements. But Division of Natural Resources on the call here. I don't know if Dr. Chabal is on the call. Can speak a little bit more to their coordination and collaboration with NTUA. And then some of the comments from Ms. Bedoni, we're writing them down and taking them down, and we'll share. Maybe President is still on the line here with us, but those are important comments here. And then also back to Ms. Pino here, if we addressed it here. The chapter in improvement is that is part of the chapter discussion. If that benefits the community and it's one of your priorities, we do encourage shovel ready. And one of the comments in the line here is why not return on investment on project shovel ready? Well, one is we have some timelines to take into consideration. That doesn't mean that there's no return on investment in a chapter improvement. But also keep in mind the funds and the Treasury guidelines have not arrived yet. Those are our guiding principles. As I explained in the PowerPoint, the month of April was really mobilizing and getting the chapters prepared and having these discussions. The other thing that's really important to note is Division of Community Development and CPMD work specifically on infrastructure related. There's a comma on here on why not focus on purifiers and sanitizers. Well, respectfully speaking, because DCD and CPMD focus on infrastructure related projects, we can bring in Dr. Jim in DOH and ASC, and we can address those questions on dispensaries or purifiers or sanitizers. But for the topic of the funds and the topic of the additional infrastructure related funds coming down from Washington, D.C., our focus is on infrastructure related projects and the need for the Navajo people to be prepared for water line and power line, cistern and septic. Those are chronic issues. And they're decades old, especially in some of our former Bennett Freeze area. So I want to share that. The other is Duran. Yes, I can share the housing plan. It may already be on our DCD website. If not, I'll be able to. We'll put that on our DCD website so that can be shared. Also, yesterday another question came up on some details for power line extensions up to the 50 feet or more. We put that PowerPoint on our DCD webpage. It's an orange webpage. It's an orange PowerPoint. And if I can switch over to shared, I might just bring it up so that you know what it looks like. That was made by Mr. Ben Cowboy, and it has additional information on some of the power line checkoff lists. So I want to add that. I'm trying to get to as much questions as I can in the chat box. Thank you, Dr. Fowler.
Thank you, Shajaa. Auto Kwanas Nana Willis Bigay o Jeto Dan Giaj Naho Jish. Willis Bigay.
That's more 30 raw.
Okay. Oh, but the top, Mr. Bigay, go ahead. You have the floor.
Hold on. Oh, yeah, Tina, Willis Bigay. Okay, I've got all day, right? Well, Judicial chapter president, and the short for the team, that's a shame. That's a cheddar, kitchen, that's another. Yeah, going out there, you could do new officials. What do you got for lunch, Jimmy? Steak? New officials on it.
Mr. Bigay, hold on, please. Hold on, please. Please mute your phone. Go ahead, Mr. Bigay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Bigay?
Hey, Josh?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, shovel ready, and then but not this kitchen, son. And the question is, can and the paperwork that's logic. And home site lease, so land clearance, so art clearance, so biological, that's logic level. Although Craigie hasn't, so if I had so. The other shovel, but just that to me, that's a shovel ready right there. You what that? So what ash? I don't know, or so are you hitting it now? And going to smile by your back, so question another can not either. So Craigie, what that? I don't know. There's no source. Until the Nakavan Nationals, I know how they are. So the equipment lineage had load all this. I spoke of all this. I don't know that Nasisha. It's a higher day there. I don't know the kabayak sige in the quepes of that. Only quite a bayak sinada. Could ever have no person fan or a quag even yes at the business in the that on the shin day after that the kagi. A quaggy shan't ever bayakam things or any bind either lessons so what another get this thing. I take it is that I thought Papa sort in the one yet as the person to the night. Why has no pressure to that? I need only a hundred houses. But on the injuries with that on the Sunday after, yes, I have it up. This is been an city door, and so has it done that on the sea, on that on the sea. So I don't know a speaker. As born nets, as in they throw out and he called what it is subcontractors. The whole reservation car, the Kushi Bandanas is the Hinda business. What another one just case. But not this kitchen song. I don't know. Michelle John or Jeff Bojo, electric, no water, no energy. Like I said, the new officials on it. So, but then now housing, no house wiring, no plumbing, no bathroom addition. So, you see what the I up on hot then on it. It is ever not this kitchen. It after, yeah.
Ikajiyaj kwa kidi oko tra kekas aro di shovel ready the ninigi aro into you age aja da inishi da bohne zanta aro electric water housing. Asian kudo Dr. Yellowman, if you like to answer or forward to one of your colleagues, Dr. Yellowman.
Thank you, Mr. Begay. I don't hear Dr. Fowler. I think some of the question goes back to just getting the cost estimates from OEH and some of the materials and supplies. Also in TUA, they have to give a cost estimate as well. We have been working with NECA. We relied last year on NECA to do subcontractors for the bathroom addition. For both the housing assessments for the bathroom additions, and then working with up to about 8 subcontractors just for those bathroom additions on various parts of the construction of that. NHA, they do their, not NHA, NTUA, they do their own construction. They have their own crews. IHS, we're still working with IHS and getting some of the information as to how they're responding to some of these projects. That's where we kind of call on leadership too as well, President's office, to ensure that IHS is at the table and responding to many of these, many of their SDS listings and some of their project listings. IHS has an extensive feasible project listing and non-feasible project listing. And then they rank their project listings from 5 to 0. Many of the projects that we're seeing at the community level are 4, 3, and 2. But some of the project listings that we want to address are the level 5 projects. So IHS is really important to have at this table, and we continue to reach out to them and ask them these questions and relay some of these concerns back to them as well. So if there's any other colleagues that want to jump on, I can't really see which other divisions are still on the line right now, but they're free to add into as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. If we can add to Dr. Shabala, Natural Resource, can you answer part of that question as well? Shiaj, Dr. Shabala.
Yate.
Oh, Yate, go ahead.
Yate shinant ido partners in little nothing. Ado babinant idas that no tata is not ado shinant ido Jonathan Ness to Myron Lizer to Paulson Chaco. Don't get some dash nishiki. Not so yet. A call. Is there been a yes I heat Lenigi the meal sa peso. Each date Adibich Yoch Kash. Lay a sanat lego gilnas ago. He and has tea. Ado had ishi deep behas ani. Chidet agi bedet igi bich hall just each at Ado that Adni peso chidet ishida hot eda ba no ancient hazi quatsa be ado nasna dist ninde a quiet تأصيل شاء كديني أني أبندا أكوك أدي تخانا خجعين خاء أدو للتي أكو إشين هيد انتهستي نانش خيلان دطول نشلا أرو أنت تبند أون نشيدات تهلون دولش رينا أتكتكي إيد أشيني بتسكتون صادو بنشت نهتا أكو شي إنسان شي آده خارج تحبش أسانات لهتا ناشنشو ديشلك إليا إيسو باندت أخنش إيه حالت إلا دا نشين دا دول نشيكي إيه بتخطيسو آرو بندون نشيكي دو بتخطيسو أخد إيا إين دي أبلسا إيه خشت دوليش آرو نش ساكي نلي دوليش تخوتا باخوين نانا كتان شتو إيان نشتوزو إيدو تنول إيشو دان شتتنا جاهت إين بان نصوصنسن إشي نصنشي آرون تكدو إين الإيدوليش آران ليرت أهوت أهنت أبتشيدو إيه آرون خوش ليسكو على إشي نصنشي أكواد يسي اللي آسي نخبا هستكي إنسان نخبا نسسكيش آرو آنيل تخو خداني خد إيه بني نادي كوان كان خاخو إيه بني ناد خات نازل دان نصيني دي آدي بيسو نوتا دان كتي نو كيلش تهويد أهدو بين كيلشن تهويد ندو نت نأدول كتيكي به نخاز دوشي إنت تتاتي دكت دوك يدا نان أستوشين نأدكت بناهي دو أسخون ليجي بيسو هنيت دو بينهو نهوت آجي جنگو بأسكي إنسيتزو بن يأديت إشتا أكو يات أكو ديدا أك أحطو قلتو أك سيجدال كارب آني ستين باكو آني نارسوست كوشي بحانتا السه إني الأتلانتا كتاتن دان إيدو تي هاتشي دنة بتتهو يي دبني ديري دازه بجان دا النشتو بجان بهز آني دهلو إذا آني خطهات إذا آني بنينان خطهات وات بهز آني دهلو أكو إينا سداز إن دهبش بول تخانداز إينا أتكدي آني نأتكدي أكو إندا خط إين أبش الشيء تدي نصن دو أرون تده دي توهكيد دين شأن نهود أتشنسني تخاطول تسيكي آني الصوت النبي كيا بكاغو بكاتيت إيدو إبا أون نشتو آشي آني نانش أبج إيدو نتلي ييغو بان تحت إيدو إبن نششي هات آنشي نانشتا دا إدوس كيديكي دو إبن نشتا خد نانش بتخاد دوت آشكوت إلي غنصو إنيج أهدس دو إحيها
yeah, I see this kid Mr. Klitzo, Banahido, Gerald Klitzo, Otto Wikedo, I have a two-part question. I don't know how the whole Jija, Iki that Osis, AARPA at nndcd.org, Oshi Yui, Doan Kodoshi Yajanini, it's Ado, I did Yata, Ajun, Iskistahuil Netole, Konde, or Kisigi, or Kis. Mr. Klitzo, Yat Eshiyash, You have the floor next.
Oh, what did you
Oh, Hadita.
Ako siya ishama. Don't know, just a little correction. Hot ashiten ko kito dan. It's actually kitso. Ako isha yat enki de schnedo les notso. Kwege de yatlani klinigi. Yat she yat one next is dost. I'm the chapter president. Donana the agency council president. Do hotashna ni selint quiskanda. Ako yat do hen ki schnedo les notso de yat hos. Donana hostet don nedigi. Nicholat Arlene Lenigi, Jonathan Nez, Ador Vice President, Ador Ketwana Ago, the Hasigit at in Hen Kidini Dole, Adonanat Akodo, Chicken, Lon Hitchakat, Z, so Yat E Pearl, Yat in the Schnedo, Leskoto. Dida, I'm going to speak on behalf of Tuba City Chapter and also on behalf of the Western Agency council chapters on Lenigi, and those, some of them have reached out with questions. Donana Nikido from Tuba, we actually had questions. Some of them you guys have heard the questions that were posed. At whole just based on not that Nenikashin, so good. Say that, yeah, a young kid is Orsa. Adok adna hol jishigi hajo dole hajo adil nil hajo peso chitil ilti nego lesson learns hat nenegi hut de yan hilchatasta ni hidota queenitsen at say that yeah da ni hikode ni the chapter has aden hilbe huzen ni hilhot egi you guys down at the bottom. Yes, we are down at the bottom. We interact with our community members. We interact with down here at the chapter level. In a konik bilke we inigi donan hashin so ben sekis in the bazat. Die tsagi hashin as de without the yasenils ako. Akot ego at say that yeah da at the needs a lean. They got the 12th hour, the 11th hour, Nisha, the in the corner peso, ne hitchell, quil, ne chapter, cheetos, Nisha, no. Those sad libitas, clonigibini now, we had to revert most of the money back. Akonano, nelago, akot the whole, just the joe, egon, sahakis. Ako, did it care or not ago, at Donna, I was able to tune into the other sessions. Donana Kati the Quagge. And need to get ye hat zich isn't some of the questions that we have isn't being answered. Last week, the speaker, Dan, Skillet Tommy Lewis, Tommy Sosi, will get MC we had some questions and it wasn't answered. That's not being answered. Some of us are online because the questions that are posed are not just particular to one chapter. So if there was a way to answer these online, so several of the chapters that have the same questions, they can get the answers. Akot eko atide kweg person late na no tato leska nenegi, and then Pearl's presentation. Ka's case in the triangle that she had, chapter-based projects, auto CPMD infrastructure projects, auto regional projects, and the hiti didn't get what eheki. We're basically focused on the chapter-based projects. Akot ego de yat naide kidigi benina naide kidden linigi ya. It seems like we really don't have a guideline. So I'd say that Mr. Chaco, we didn't have a guideline for the CARES Act. No, you can't see. According to Miss Lewis, I don't see how this fund should be used. No, 18 cases, so, and it seems like 3 of them is basically a response to the COVID-19. The 4th item in the necessary investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Otto Nana Pearl's presentation, projects for ARP funding priorities, activities to be included. Nana power line rule addressing house wire and solar water line project, warehouse bathroom addition. The application form that's on the portal. That's why these questions are being posed. Here at Tube City, we have some projects that we like to implement. But it really, then we go back to the questions of the 4 points that how these funds can be used, and then to the 7 that Pearl put. Power line, power line, the water line project, NTUA, bidete, na kidishi na anistole. Even if we were to take it and we're going to say, okay, we're going to put this in as a proposal into the application process, the questions that we have to put in there. And we can't seem to get past that. We have housing needs. We have roads that is on ours right here in Tuba. We have some public safety issues, but it's not included in the 7th. I need to get without Gina. So we're assuming that the housing NHA, they're going to get their own funding. Mr. Silversmith, I need to get roads to ya on hot z. So di de halet ego to de hashinel janite kit basala. Joel ke when ago it's just ago. Akut ego stachit edo les winsen. Akut ego, several chapters have reached out to me, and at Dada Isen Sadonana Katakunana Ego. Hajo be down here at our level, we want our voice to be heard. We want our questions to be answered. The Ninigi but we're just given a short time again here. But I still appreciate the information that was given to us. But I think a little bit more time specifically allotted to chapters, concerns, chapters, question, equitable. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone. Jonathan as the president, everything that they're doing for us. Thank you.
Oh, here she has and his join anido come in like ani with or you go on a kid or koti or kissy ya the latana ayen zana bikia dot he had Joshi wins and Jokodo open his chohot anido na atikide edo Jojo Bantes case so di that chapter then Asayastio agency down a ado bashinoka. Joshi Yugo Nabikiat or Tito Khait ai khajo at or li khajo hisn da annish khatninki to an later apa hunsen. Chapters are the foundation of government hatne eshe kha adiki khashino sa tohne on hike an da hat ata di no da hat ata be ya te ani hot ati aita or ki oko aita na net na or kit Ako ashi pas na hito asto ata isiti in so ejoti ni hirko hot ehito the question sanas it ata pidi no na toni bin na hot asa neitle ato asa na kita haljinji tati ninda o yo khata de nitse so an hi nitse ako na ati kit ko ati kuita haljinji to ni o yo nan ashisa zido shanan astro sani hot ayasti kada is do lila o yo bahas ti ye a kwante dona khata we apologize that we didn't get to hear you out, but we do want to continue working with you. If your questions were not answered, we ask that you do an email to our DCD, which is arpa@ndc.org. Audit or CISO audit the hotos the phone number ya na hadne ko ada bit hotos ne ashi hit ada ist eton nisto ist etil nish edo shitne adon hizan linido pa huilia ya ate ot ya sabentan hitne ska kodo nas nan dole AAD is an other big central agency to out na ne Ako ajit na isi dos things ajit sa ajat nakat na tahotol jish ako nast dino ashla eko eta isa ako adok at asia chain lini ba nada dot ako at closing remarks ito leaf shi JT na naho jiwa.
Oh, yeah, Shitsui, Dr. Fowler, Otto, Arnold Skodikon, Tatnas Nile, Nihinant Ahetas Dahiki, Ayesi Hehedo Lithli, Njonogoshi, a Hitlen de Nishto, Na Nishinle, the Nebekea Pakako, Otto Eya, the American Rescue Plan, will Yahiki aid Ayesi Njonogoshi. Nkate sazen Nkate na nishkotole ebeninan di nihinan nishkotlo. Throughout the conversation that has taken place through this morning, a lot of valuable feedback that will help us in the planning of the American Rescue Plan funds once they are going to be disseminated to the Navajo Nation. We are understandable that there is no guidelines created. There is no amount of money that has been designated as of yet. Our leadership has been in the advocacy of the formula as well as the designation of fund amount to the Navajo people. And of course, when we get to that point of where the money becomes available to us, we want to ensure that our plan is put together and that we are ready to initiate all of the different proposals as well as make sure all of our background work has been complete. And this morning's session is the beginning of those conversations. Some of you have already been working with us on the elaboration of projects as well as proposals. And you always have the question of, well, what is eligible and what is not? And we're not there just yet, but it would be great for us to start identifying many of these projects. There's a lot of need at the chapter level. Just reading off some of the comments in the chat box, can we ask for reimbursements for certain things? And of course, it's good to have those documents ready to go when it comes time to have these critical meetings with leadership. And as we move forward, the CARES money that was allotted last year was 2.2 trillion. And of course, the CARES money was identified for immediate relief and assistance from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, we haven't advanced forward from that pandemic. We're still in the pandemic, taking steps cautiously to reopen the Navajo Nation, looking to support from many of our states that we're located in, as well as national level to support, the elimination of the COVID-19 virus here within the United States, and most importantly on Navajo Nation. But the American Rescue Plan, 1.9 trillion, was put together in order to assist us with much of the recovery. And of course, recovery is where we are at. We're looking to go towards. And of course, recovery comes with a lot of different plans and proposals. A comment that was made in the chat box is sticking with me. And that's, of course, the best investment versus shovel ready. And that may be one of the opportunities for us to see best investment interest for a lot of our projects at the local level. And of course, you've seen our presentations that have been presented to Navajo Nation Council, where we are now in the process of making those changes and of course, working with you all on what kind of modifications need to take place through the vetting process to ensure that we have the best investment and opportunities for a longer term effect. Given that this may be the last fund coming from the federal level, we want to expand those opportunities for us, expand the capacities, of course. And a lot of questions did come up of the use of employment. You know, are we ready? Is NTUA ready? Is NECA ready? Is the Navajo Nation ready? Are the chapters ready? And with all those minds coming into place, it's expanding the capacity to build all of these proposals within a set time frame. It's understandable that the time frame is a lot longer now. However, we need to ensure that all of our, as they say, the ducks are in the row when it comes time to start designating monies, because 2024 will come here a lot quicker than we know. And of course, the CARES Fund gave us the opportunity, but the time frame was so short that we were done within months. And so now with the new opportunity with the ARPA funds, there's a longer time frame, but we don't want to be at this point where we're waiting the last minute to start designating funds towards projects, because those projects need to be starting soon. They need to happen now. It's particular for economic development, which is my background. I'll be up in Navajo Mountain tomorrow meeting with leadership. And so I'm looking to really carry out the conversations a lot more. And all of my fellow directors are looking to provide the same guidance and leadership under our president and vice president and our council. So thank you very much to you all as well, Dr. Fowler, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, should say, then he told any day on hit the net hot so non yes, ye it's a latina tani leco. Aro Kodorian Hichahazi, the Nani Glini, Ashi ni o Yugo nan Neston si Kasen de Hajor his the deal Nestonasko net Naja na wheat Ado Nihid Nepa wheat Asto Bansi Case Jo Ebenia, a dan hit East Nishik Edo shouldn't a co a here and Hidini or less Ado Tatnas no Sini Kayapanat no Sini Ado Naz Gloshi. Ado ta isunov tsai here ashi ini ado na khata huishi dan de jojo and or kisido awni chonski your khar ado kana sos kenjinela bi yahuye and de job bichishi kha ini no it il nito inil zendale akoti a yak at the Western Agency American Rescue Plan ishi Coche silzado lesto na bikia silskito lesti asa hata konana aja eti chinli bikahatso chinli agency nana asa de bikita has cancer ado is ka le Northern Agency ja aja ben hol jisto le a konaki ha kun sakoshi ne yado le chikero shitne ihe kuja hata so kizito ta hosyado